Grab your favorite mug and fill it up with your favorite blend because we're getting ready to sit down and talk about Southwest Florida real estate. Cottrell Title and Escrow presents The Closing Experience, real estate talk over a cup of coffee. What are my closing fees going to be? Should I rent or should I finally purchase? Why do I have to send all of these documents to get a mortgage? The real estate process doesn't have to be frustrating. Let our experts at Cottrell Title and Escrow help make buying or selling real estate a dream. Here to answer all of your questions, our host, managing partner of Cottrell Title and Escrow, James Schlimmer.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Closing Experience, real estate talk over a cup of coffee. I'm your host, James Schlimmer with Cottrell Title and Escrow, and sitting with me, which I always love, is my partner in crime, the founding attorney of Cottrell Title and Escrow, Mr. Justin Cottrell. How are you, bud?
Doing okay today. Very exciting episode today. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, sure. I feel like every episode I say, I'm so excited about this episode. This is going to be one of the greatest ones ever. But without question, what we're going to bring to the table today, I don't think it's ever been done in podcast history, I would say, regarding the real estate industry. But Justin and I right now are live at WFG's Spark Convention in Orlando, Florida. And we are, my jaw, Justin, has been dropped many times today with the mindset WFG has with how they want to, I would say, just get their agents to the next level where the future is going. They're arming agents with not just, calendars when you come into the office and throw that down, or, stale bagels that sometimes underwriters bring. They're actually saying, hey, this is the future of this business. Let us help you get there. This is what you need to do to differentiate yourself, because if you're doing business the old way, something needs to change. And what I love about what we're getting here at this conference, it's substance they have, and it's the technology aspect, which was mind-blowing, but the future of real estate, our industry, is now. It's happening right now, and there's no question that WFG is leading the way and innovating the way. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce, we're sitting with actually WFG's CEO, Pat Stone, who Inman News named in 2013 one of the 100 most influential people in real estate, 2015 top 101 real estate industry doers, and apparently started his career as a title examiner. It wasn't a very good one.
I was not a very good one, James. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, thanks so much for being here. Pat, the first thing I want to throw out here is I did a little bit of research, and I was able to find a quote that maybe 2013. So it brings us back maybe 5 years ago. And this is your quote in regards to CFPB and the changes. You said, one of the thoughts I had that you either embrace this or you use it for the betterment of your company and your financial success, or you fight it, spend a lot of money and end up doing it anyway in a halfway manner. And I read that quote today, and obviously you were referring to the CFPB, but doesn't that hold true with regarding where the technology is taking us in the title insurance industry as well?
That applies to technology. It applies to just about any change that is proactive and benefits the client or the consumer. Absolutely. It applies across the board, and that mindset is, I would attribute that mindset to what success I've had in life.
It seems to me, and Justin, I know you can chime in here too, because full disclosure, we're an agent for WFG at Cottrell Title and Escrow. So if it sounds like we're drinking the WFG Kool-Aid, it's because we are.
We are. Yeah, absolutely.
There's no question about it, but it's because of their business philosophies. And I'm actually going to bring up another quote here because this makes so much sense to me. March of last year, Pat, you were quoted as saying the real estate and mortgage industry could undoubtedly do much, much better for the consumer and for itself. When it comes to the dilapidated and decaying process, it tends to use to usher a home buyer through the process. And I mean, that resonates so well with us because we are constantly thinking over the last 5 years, like the closing experience needs to get out of the 1980s is what it seems like. We have to do a better job for buyers and sellers. And it seems like the title industry as a whole is very old.
Yeah, James, I would suggest it goes back prior to the 1980s. I can remember actually doing closings in the mid 70s, and the total process and the amount of interaction and the amount of data sharing and information flow between the different participants was bulky and cumbersome at that time, just like it is today. And really, the underlying problem here is that you have a lot of well-intentioned people in the process, but they operate under different silos. The lender, the realtor, the settlement agent, and all the people that are involved, the appraiser, the inspector, the attorney, whoever is involved in the transaction is all regulated different. So consequently, they develop different technologies, they operate under different rules, and it's the opportunity here, and the opportunity here is to blend all these players into a seamless process for the benefit of the consumer. Until we do that, we are a very antiquated business.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that stands out to me with WFG is obviously the technology. But before we get to that, it's really your team, and I say your executive team, has a mindset that to me is completely different from what I'm hearing from the other underwriters. I won't say the name of the underwriter, but they were just in my office last week and saying, "Hey, James, how do we get back on track? How can we start getting your business? We know you guys are doing great things in Southwest Florida." And I said, do you understand what WFG offers? And I'm making the joke, not calendars that you bring in on a weekly basis or annual basis, and not, hey, here's a good standing certificate link for your signature. Your My Home portal is revolutionary in regards to the closing process. And from Gorkum, from Justin, from Spark, from you and the conversations we had, there's a different mindset in your executive team. And I'd love to know how WFG, how you were able to institute that.
Well, I think, we started the company in January of 2010, and obviously it was a very challenging, point in the industry. It was a very depressed point. And I think to a large extent, the participants in the industry were all very defensive at that time. And so we took the approach that we could add value by being a part of our client's process. And by that, I mean that instead of standing back and saying we're an independent company, that we're an insurance company, that we need to operate at an arm's length, we embrace the opportunity to interact with our clients to the benefit of the consumer. And in doing so, make the process more seamless, and doing so, make the process more efficient, and make for a happier buyer and a happier seller to the benefit of everybody. So we've had that mindset since the beginning. That mindset, I think, permeates the organization. There's no such thing as a flat organization, but we are definitely not a hierarchical organization. And I hate it. I hate being called Mr. Stone. I mean, I really do. I go crazy. My name is Pat, and I'm working just like everybody else for the same common purpose. And I think that attitude permeates the company. It makes it a fun place to work, and it makes it about the client, not about us.
There's no question that sitting in the room at Spark, that at least that direction, that whether it's coming from the top down, it's not a hierarchy, but each one of your executives, that comes across. And that's exciting because that's how we want to run our organization. And ultimately, everything is about the experience for that buyer and seller. With that, even to make it more exciting, Justin, right?
I don't think we can.
We're just ready to
handle the anticipation here.
Well, here's what's going on. So as I mentioned, we're at WFG Spark conference. And what is Spark, which is different from just about any other title conference that we've ever been to. But we're sitting here, and just came in the room is WFG's Chief Marketing Officer, Justin Tucker. Now, Justin is... I'm going to say some nice things about you too, Justin, before you start talking here.
Perfect.
He's out 2017 Housing Wire Rising Star. He's the 4th employee ever at WFG. And what I'm more impressed about than any of it is that you're kind of the brainchild behind Spark, correct?
Well, I can't fully take credit for that. I mean, it's a massive team effort. I actually remember the day we got prompted to do it. We had just finished what I would call maybe a prototypical underwriter event. And, great event, good feedback, a lot of clients in the room. And one of the things I really appreciate about Pat, he always forces us to decompress. And so we went into a room post that, and we're sitting down. And I, in that underwriting event, had a couple of topics around marketing and technology strategies. And the feedback was really great. And so Pat actually challenged us to create an event that was full marketing, tech, and sales, where we got rid of underwriting bulletins and information security and legal, and just said, we're going to figure out all of these strategies to grow our client's business. And so we went to the drawing board collectively and said, what does that look like? How do we make that grow? What should the content look like? How can we bring in outside speakers to give perspective? So I have a big hand in it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't give a lot of credit to everyone else who worked very hard in it.
That's fantastic. You mentioned before you got here saying that WFG, in our opinion, is leading from an innovative standpoint where this industry is headed. And I say the title insurance industry, real estate industry as a whole. And it's very easy. And what I get bored sometimes listening to content because, it makes sense. Like, you want to have a great closing experience. You want to be able to go above and beyond. And it's a lot of cliches.
Sure.
Yet you guys have actually sat down and created text message notifications in My Home, video to be able to make sure that client is informed whenever they want, document portal that's secure. Some of the ideas that you guys have done, how did you do it? I really just got to ask, because we're sitting in our office and we just think it'd be great if this existed. It'd be so great if this existed. And you guys actually did it.
Well, it definitely starts with a commitment from the top. I mean, I remember another thing Pat said to me very early on is, don't let us become a dinosaur as a company. We always want to evolve, to innovate, to think. And so we're constantly paying attention to that. And as you referenced, I think service, a good experience, that's becoming the barrier to entry. So if you just kind of look through a lens of other companies, I mean, it's so easy in other industries for me to order food, it's so easy for me to track a package to my doorstep. And so you're looking for these trends and seeing how do they apply to our world. And so once you realize that, then you step back and say, okay, let's start asking questions about how that process translates to our clients, to our customers, that very client-centric, client-first approach. So we actually just started calling buyers and sellers and saying, tell me about your closing experience. And we were listening to them talk about, well, I'm not always sure what's going on. Or, I walk into the closing room, or I walk into the office for the first time, and I meet the closer for the first time ever. So I have no idea, other than some emails and maybe a picture on the signature line, how that person is and what their communication style is like. And so, that translated into video. And I don't know about you, but my email is inundated constantly. But when I get a text, I respond right away.
Sure.
So you start just looking for these trends and say, how do they apply to our world? And then you get that commitment out of the top who says, build it. And I think our first iteration of My Home was just the consumer-facing portal. And Pat said, I'll write the check for you guys, but it's got to be built in 60 days.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're like, okay, let's go.
Justin and I were saying that we feel like having you two sit down and be a part of the closing experience, real estate talk over a cup of coffee, we could interview you every day for the next year on different topics that would be fascinating to us, and we can geek out here. So one of the things that we're proud to bring to the table here is a new forum to talk about the real estate industry and what's happening, specifically title. Pat, today in your presentation, you mentioned raise the floor, raise the ceiling, whether it's productivity. But if you're a title company anywhere in the country, and you're probably listening to this right now, and you're trying to figure out, hey, I want to be able to get more orders on a monthly basis, but I'm stuck in the manila folders. I'm getting paper cuts. It's brutal. Can you kind of expand a little bit or talk a little bit about what raise the floor, raise the ceiling means?
Well, it's really a function of expecting more. I mean, there is no greater compliment that you can give anybody than to think that they can do more than they're doing, that sometimes to even think they can do better than they think they can. And it is a sincere compliment because you look at how people evolve in a job. They obviously, I think almost everyone wants to do a good job, but everybody gets to a comfort level. And, so you challenge them to increase that, but you do it by leadership. You can't say, you guys need to work harder, I'm going to go play golf.
Sure.
You actually got to be working hard. You got to come to work. You got to be focused. They got to see that you got to walk the talk. But you can expect more from people, and then you're automatically going to get some pushback. And then you say, well, then why don't you sit down and think about what you do and think if you can do it any differently than you're doing it. So you're telling them that they're smart enough to actually change the way things are done to the betterment of the process. And in doing so, you're complimenting them. And in doing so, you're giving them intellectual equity in the end result. And it's fascinating to me because you go around, you look at different operations, and I gave an example this morning when I was talking about two different like-kind operations. One was outperforming the other measurably,
Sure.
and it was simply because the boss came to work earlier. Well, he not only came to work earlier, he came to work earlier because he was actually more committed, and his people saw that, right? And, it was a real lesson for the other guy, because when he actually saw the numbers and saw how much more this person was making in his operation, just because he was more committed and his employees responded, he picked up the pace. But you basically, if you're a leader, you set the rules by which your people play. But you got to walk the talk. You can't just all verbalize it and go play golf. You got to actually dig in and do it yourself.
I get emails from Pat at 11 o'clock at night and 4:30 in the morning.
Yep.
So.
And I want to make a comment about Justin. Justin's no sluggard. He is always thinking. He is always working. He's always pushing. We often laugh about any opportunity in excess of your capability doesn't really exist because you can't execute on it. And we frequently have about 10 times as much opportunity as we have capability.
Sure.
So we get a little bit frustrated for time, but we're real happy with what we've done and real happy with what we're going and the interaction we have.
I tell you what, we're sitting here on the Closing Experience Real Estate Talk over a cup of coffee with WFG's CEO, Pat Stone, and their Chief Marketing Officer, Justin Tucker. Justin Cottrell is right next to me here. We're doing this together, which is a blast. We have been heavily involved, our firm, with online remote notarization, specifically in Florida, trying to get that legislation passed. Actually, it went through Senate today. I've got up here. I was watching the House, trying to see if we can get it through. It's either going to happen today or tomorrow. WFG has been instrumental in helping get this bill passed. I know you've spoken in favor of it at committee meetings. You're one of your senior counsels, Alan Fields, is a huge proponent of it. Can you talk a little? It just seems like you guys are so ahead of the curve in all things the future of this industry. And I'm saying you guys are innovators. Can you talk a little bit about where you see online notarization, fully electronic closings, and how WFG wants to be a part of it?
And more specifically, is that purposeful? Is that something that comes from the top down? Is that part of the business plan to be innovative and kind of really help all your agents with everything?
I'm going to be just really honest with you here. It's not about being innovative. It's about doing things more efficiently, more effectively, and making more money.
Sure.
Uncle Pat is a very money-oriented guy, and I look at e-closings, and I look at the process that evolves in pursuit of e-closings. And let's be candid, 100% e-closings nationally is still a long ways off.
Sure.
But we're making incremental steps in that direction. It saves time. It saves effort. It increases efficiency. It eliminates rekeying of data. It eliminates mistakes. It results in the consumer getting in the home faster and in a happier state. Everybody wins, and we all make more money because of it, right? So is it painful? Does it mean giving up on long-established processes? Is it a little discomfort? Creates a little discomfort? Yes. Does it also entail some sunk cost in existing equipment technology? Yes. Ultimately, though, it's much better for everybody involved, and everybody makes more money in the process.
And I always approach it from the client experience standpoint. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about the consumer and our clients, realtors and lenders, about improving that experience. And again, if you look at the trends of how you purchase today, people are becoming lazy.
Sure.
Very, very lazy. Things have
Is
to
that
be
the
simple.
consumer or the actual agents or real estate agents
Well,
or all parties involved?
I am never going to call our realtors and lenders lazy on that, so I'm going to go ahead and move past that one.
Yep.
But I can even reference myself as a consumer. I live in downtown Portland,
Yeah.
and there'll be a restaurant 2 blocks away that I want to get food from.
Yep.
and I will go on Postmates or Uber Eats and have someone go those 2 blocks for me, and I'll pay $8 more for what was a $12 meal because I don't want to get up and walk down 2 blocks, right? It's happening to this point where people want instant access, transparency, and the ability to get what they want on demand when they want it. Then you take a process like ours, which is 45, 60, 90 days, and it's cumbersome and it's clunky, and I mean, you have to print out paper and then scan paper back in, or I mean, all of these things just take away from this experience. So if we're trying to do the best thing for our partners and realtors and lenders in showcasing a great experience for them, every time one of their buyers or sellers walks into one of our offices, if they have an amazing experience, it reflects very positively on that realtor or lender. So things like our consumer dashboard, we get reviews constantly from buyers and sellers saying, oh, I loved working with WFG because I could track my closing. Sure. Well, that reflects at such a high level on that realtor and lender, and then everybody wins in that scenario.
Justin does a really good job of soliciting feedback on closings. And he has a program where we give a star rating to the closers that handle the closings. And, you know, that sort of creates a very positive feedback loop. So they're endeavoring and trying to do a better job. But it also gives us a real clear, immediate view as to how we're doing with the client. And we've tried lots of things. We've adapted a lot of things and modified them, and then we've walked away from some things that don't work. So you got to have that feedback loop, and I'll give Justin credit for this too. If he's wrong, he admits it and moves on.
Sure.
You can't defend a bad idea. It doesn't work, right? So very innovative gentleman and always pushing the envelope.
Now, let me ask you this. While we got you here, and I don't want to put you up. Clearly, I'm putting you on the spot because it's
when you start with, I don't want to put you on the spot.
But if you're like the master genius behind My Home, and you look and say, okay, well, hey, fully electronic closings they're on the horizon. We know it's going to happen. What do you see as the possibilities for that with online notarization?
Well, I want to be very humble in saying, you know, My Home is something I'm very connected to, but there's so many people who played a role in that and helped collaborate and build that. So, you know, I don't think I'm the master genius behind that. I think I'm a part of an amazing company with a great group of people that allows us to collaborate and innovate.
And you're humble, very humble.
So we actually just had kind of a planning phase or a planning meeting for phase 2 of My Home, and you start to think about now all the transactional things that you can do in it. Buyer and seller information sheets that go right into your production system. You start thinking about the automatic delivery of documents as they're finished in the production system. You start thinking about the ability for someone to change. I mean, think of all the wire fraud right now. The ability for someone to go change their wiring instructions in a 2-factor authentication back-end system that's in our environment that we're controlling to be able to mitigate that risk. And that just keeps moving further and further to communication, so people communicating through it, and this kind of paperless e-closing, notarization side of things, where if we can deliver documents in the system where people can interact with the system, I mean, my mind can go to like way too far to the future of what that could be, but at least what we're focused on is having a platform that we have buy-in. We have less than a 1% unsubscribe rate. We have a 52%.
What does that mean on the less than 1% unsubscribe rate?
No one unsubscribes from the notifications.
Okay.
Which it's an impressive number, but it makes sense, right? We're sending them transactional information. No one's going to unsubscribe from that. But so once people start getting, our process was, let's build a very simple, intuitive, non-cumbersome platform that people start to get comfortable and familiar with. And then we'll start, based on market feedback or market need, that's when we'll start adding features and benefits. And too many people, they build a system up front and say, it's got to do everything. It's got to do everything right now. And it becomes clunky and super confusing to the end user. And so we started simple, and we'll continue to evolve with that platform as the market feedback dictates. But it will be a place where we could very, very easily start to introduce elements of e-closing.
I got to add something here, and Justin again is underselling this a little bit. He and his team did beta test with 3,000 transactions in perfecting this. So this wasn't just drawn up and put in place. They worked really, really hard to perfect a process that works for everybody.
We brought in user groups of buyers and sellers to sit down, and we just opened up the screen, we turned on a video camera, and we said, click. Like, we just want to watch you interact with the system. And I think that's where other industry or other title companies who have taken a stab at something like this before have failed. They built it with their purpose in mind. And so people would go into the system, and it was confusing, and it didn't look right, and they didn't focus on any user experience or user interface. And that's where we started. We're like, let's watch people. We built wireframes, clickable wireframes, and said, just go interact. We just want to watch you.
I'm sure you got so much information just by watching what they did with this little mouse, where they went and where they're hung up on with everything. I'm sure it was so enlightening.
Oh, so many things we thought would happen didn't.
Yeah,
Really?
It changed dramatically in the beta. It really did.
It did.
It changed dramatically.
And I would imagine the things that you were most confident on were probably the false ones at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this concept of that we're the smartest people in a room and we can just sit there and build these solutions is an outdated concept. I mean, you have to listen to market feedback.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head, though, because many within the industry, I would say, focus so much on the business. And you're talking about the business, and you're talking about hiring, and you forget and lose the experience for that buyer and seller, the closing experience. I mean, that's why it's the name of the show, because that's what we are so trying to focus on. And you guys have put forth 3,000 transaction beta test is amazing, by the way. I'm even more secure now about what we're getting ready to do. From a geek out standpoint, short track buyer info seller sheets, short track integrating directly with the real estate agent's platform so it can automatically move in to ResWare, get into My Home from there. There is so many different ways to tweak what you guys have done. And we've spent just about a year now getting ready to launch in June. Couldn't be more excited about it. As we are beginning to wrap up, there's one question that I just have to ask, because you've mentioned silos often, Pat. I've seen them in articles. You mentioned it today, and you talk about how the real estate process usually is, a lot of centralized silos. Yep. And when you look at words that use silos, you use centralized or decentralized. There's a word that we know you don't like that Justin used last night called disruption. But those are all key words in what's happening out in Silicon Valley right now with blockchain technology and the real estate industry. And I'm wondering where, if you look at kind of, hey, the what we do with clearing title for a seller and making sure they transfer that, we know how to navigate those silos at a municipality level. I'd love to get your take on it. Where do you guys see blockchain coming in? Or I don't see it changing the title insurance industry because of how complex it is of what we do, but it's definitely on the horizon.
Well, it has an applicability on the closing side, but not on the title examination side. And the reason I don't think it has applicability there is, title examining, you're looking backwards in time. I mean, if it's a commercial deal, you're looking back 30 or 50 years. Residential deal, you're typically on probably average looking back 7 to 15 years, depending on if it's a subdivision. But it's dependent on a lot of existing records. And so you could use blockchain going forward, but you still have to use the existing records. It makes no sense to do that. And I don't think you'll get the 3,000 and some recorders' offices to all simultaneously go on blockchain. Sure. So I doubt that I'll see blockchain used on the title side in the rest of my career. On the closing side, there is some potential because it may actually enhance the applicability of a total e-closing, because the lender, the realtor, the settlement agent could all build a file simultaneously using blockchain technology.
Is it smart contracts? Is that what you're referring to?
Sort of, yeah, okay. Yeah. And I think but I'm going to tell you again, I don't think it's going to have a rapid acceptance. When I talk about silos, underlying all these silos are regulatory frameworks, and these regulatory frameworks govern insurance, lending, real estate practices. They're all different regulatory entities, but then there's applied differently in 50 different states.
Sure.
So it is very, very hard to get consensus in going in any particular direction. Very hard to get anything enacted at on a wide basis in a very short period of time. It's almost impossible. You'll see some things tried on the settlement side, but I'm not and I sound like an old curmudgeon, but I'm not putting a lot of money in it right now.
Well, and when we reference silos, we're almost taking that in a different direction of, lending, real estate, and title, and having no integration. And Pat uses the term integrated transparency. That's where our focus is you have, this core group of LOSs, and then, some fringe stuff. You have this kind of core group of production systems for title companies, and then some fringe stuff. And then you have a massive disconnect on the real estate side of all of these systems that every independent contractor decides they want to use for transaction management. And at the end of the day, if we can become a part of those processes and integrate into those silos when we're already doing our job, and be able to have that facilitate out into other environments to make other people's jobs easier, that's to use the word of the day, that's way more sexy to me than blockchain and what's happening on that side of things.
Certainly more practical.
Love it.
I tell you what, this has been an amazing day. It's been an excellent interview. Again, we are here, the Closing Experience Real Estate Talk, over a cup of coffee. We're live at WFG's Spark Convention, which clearly we're drinking the WFG Kool-Aid, Justin, but I just
coffee, huh?
I want it, or the coffee, which was, by the way, we're supposed to say what kind of coffee it is. It was just regular hotel coffee. It was average, to be perfectly honest. But here's the thing, that if you're listening and you're a title company, I'd love to give you guys a plug. And what I'm saying here is this: if you're trying to figure out where the future of this industry is going, and this is exactly what I said to that underwriter in my office. I said, you guys are probably going to do fine in Naples, Florida, as business as usual, because there's a lot of folks on the dinosaur model, which I say the old way. I said, but we're focused on the next 10 years, 15 years of where this industry is going. And there is no doubt that WFG is innovating and leading the way. And whether you're doing it for efficiency or cost-cutting measures, the stuff you are coming out with is cool and fun, and ultimately makes the closing experience better for the buyer and seller. So thank you so much. And we're happy to be a part of what you guys are doing, and look forward to next year's Spark event.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Well, we're delighted to be associated with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.